Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Dean Zachary, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we go beyond politics, beyond calculation, and beyond the big two. Join us each and every Wednesday. Don't miss out.
Hi, I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Silverline Wednesday Night Wham! With your host, Scott Wakefield.
Wow, that's a great introduction. This is Silverline's Wednesday Wham! I'm your host, as he said, Scott Wakefield. Welcome. We're glad you're here. We've got a great lineup tonight. So, stories that have a supernatural element, which both of these stories do. There's a vampire side to Bloodline, and this demonic occult element to Friar Rush. The story starts in, and I say the Middle Ages. I know that's a broad span of time. I think it's the 1500s. I could be wrong. I need to go back and look. Middle Ages. He's a medieval man of the cloth. And then we jump to more of a current timeline, and we don't know how he made that jump, but that obviously there's something supernatural there. Does that sort of element in a story ring true? Does that draw you in, or is that something that's not really your thing? I think, Brent, you mentioned even when we were talking about movies before that you're not into the horror element, right? Dan, too. You said
I'm totally into the horror.
Oh, you are in. Dan, you...
I'm not that into totally.
Okay. So my question, does that draw you in, that supernatural element? It doesn't necessarily need to be horror. It doesn't need to be frightening, but a supernatural element. Does that draw you in, or you need a more grounded rom-com?
Are you asking all of us? What about the supernatural rom-com?
You're right.
To be honest, if someone's going to tell me a good story, I will take whatever they can get. And when I think, I mean, I don't really think of anything as off-putting as long as it makes sense in the context of the story. What I do hate is when I am being sold a story that has no supernatural elements, and then suddenly they throw one in, and they're looking at me to just say, "Oh, it's okay. It's just a story." They've lost me. I might as well just go and do something else, because that, in my mind, is a not a good grasp of the world that you're working with. I mean, and that includes supernatural things. If you are dealing with a vampire mythos, silver bullets will not kill a vampire. And if it does, then you don't know what's going on unless you explain it to everyone that these are the special vampires.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just another device. It's just another world building thing. And when it's done well, it's great.
And maybe something that everyone can attach to their answer to this. Tim Pole on Twitch wants to know if any one of us have seen a ghost. So, Brent, have you seen a ghost?
Have I seen a ghost? I've seen Ghost.
There you go. The ghost of Patrick Swayze.
I don't think so. I am definitely subscribed to belief that there's more going on than I know, but haven't seen a ghost.
All right.
So, sorry.
Hey, got a quick. Let's see Michael introduce himself. Then we'll get back.
Oh, hi, I'm C. Michael Lanning, pencilist for Silverline, and there we go.
All right.
All right.
Sweet. We'll get back to it. Brent, excellent. So yeah, the question is do we like those supernatural elements? Is that something that draws us in? And then we have an add-on. Have we seen a ghost? That's a great question. I love it. I love that. I don't want to get too far off. I'll talk in a minute. And Brent had a great answer. And is the word? It's verisimilitude, right? You set the rules, and even if your rules are outrageous and you have to suspend disbelief, you got to stick within those rules. So we've set a world where people can fly and breathe underwater, and when you divert from those rules, yeah, same thing. I'm like when we talked about the movies.
That's some of the problem I have with some of the newer Star Wars movies too, is that they've kind of established what you could do with the Force or something, and then people are doing things that were never done with the Force before, but that's just me complaining.
But they just fixed it. They said, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that with the Force." And they're like, "Yeah, who knew?" And then you're fine.
They don't explain like why suddenly there's all these new things you can do when you couldn't do them before. But maybe it's because some of the stuff that was established in books are non-canon stuff. But still, if it's there and like people know about it, you should try and stick to the framework that either people established before you. And that even happens in comic books. It happens with what happened with Superman or other characters where people just start making people, or Wolverine is a great example where he started off with a very set of powers and what his regeneration could do. And then it got to the point where he could get annihilated down to a cell and regenerate from that. And it's it's just you set ground rules for what people can do. And Mark Gruenwald did all that hard work in the Marvel Handbook of the Marvel Universe, and to ignore all of that, it's sad.
We are talking about a very specific group of aficionados who love the minutia. So if you're going to mess around, you do it in the world that you live in, or else you're going to be hearing about it for years.
From people like me, probably, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but it's kind of like Superman flying, though. After a while, it just becomes part of the mythos anyway, and whoever had a problem with it at first kind of died off. So, I mean, to be able to just leap, now he can fly. So, I think they've added more powers to it now. So,
you could do just about everything at any.
Yeah, that's when Star Wars is going to right itself, is when the current fan base dies off. So.
So Dan, any encounters with the supernatural personally?
No, I wish I did. Like anything, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts. I'd love to experience any of it firsthand. I'm a skeptic, but I'm an open-minded skeptic.
Yeah.
I would love to be convinced that there's something more. I was up where Scott and I live. There's a place called the Rolling Hills Asylum. It was on like Ghost Hunters and all that stuff. A bunch of
Nice.
And I was there once before they turned it into like the ghost tour place, and it was like it's like a craft mall, right? Wasn't it?
Called the Carriage Village before. Yeah.
And I went there when it was the Carriage Village, and I was super creeped out by it. And I was like, wow, why does this place have such a weird vibe to it? And then I started reading stuff on the walls, and it said it was like in a asylum and a poorhouse and all this other stuff. And then I went back there when they did it, and I did one of the ghost hunts. But there was like 40 people there, and there was a bunch of teenagers, and everyone's laughing. And the vibe was totally different. I was like not creeped out at all. And like if I figured something cool was going to happen, it would probably happen there, and it didn't. So, but we'll see. Maybe someday. Not yet.
Sounds like Halloween Horror Nights every year.
Yeah.
Huh. Where is this?
Right between like Rochester and Buffalo. And where is it? Is that in East Bethany?
It's in a little town called East Bethany. It's a teeny little town in Western New York.
Wow.
But all of the Ghost Hunter shows have been like all the big shows. They've been there, and it's an middle 1800s building that really, it was at the time you couldn't pay your bills. You were a widow, an orphan. They threw you all in there. Good luck.
No.
And it's in a weird place. It's all fields and corn and a forest, but the forest is from when they planted, and then like during the Conservation Corps time as well. And this brick edifice is there that was the county poorhouse. It's a neat old building. Same thing when I was littler, elementary school age, my best friend's aunt had a store in the Carriage Village. She sold peanuts, and it was spicy peanuts and roasted peanuts. And so, of course, I want to hang out with my buddy, and I live in the middle of nowhere. So what else am I going to do? Same thing. I'd go wander around the halls. He'd be at his aunt's store selling peanuts, and I'd go wander around. And their thing was, and I don't know who their marketing director was to put, it's called the Carriage Village, and they got all these old carriages from around, and they put them on display in the morgue. So you go downstairs, and they had the big giant steel door, and the carriages were all, and okay, you look at them, and I just got this feeling like, ooh, cool, carriage, neat. Oh, and then get out of there, because it was
such a bizarre, like it's an insane asylum that now they have carriages in and people are selling peanuts and like
Perfect.
It's the most bizarre place ever. It's so weird.
It's insane for other reasons. Huh. That sounds pretty interesting.
It's look up Rolling Hills.
Like in Orlando.
They still do the ghost tours, don't they?
Yeah,
they
do.
I think they do.
I don't know how they keep the lights. The building's huge, and the roof's got to be fallen in, and got out to heat the place. And
we do a Silverline ghost hunt sometime.
There we go. Yeah.
On Zoom.
Yeah.
And
I love. So my answer to the question is I love the supernatural element. I know some people just they hate it. They don't like they want a villain that is flesh and blood that you can fight, that that's got fists or a sword or a gun. And while I like that, but there's something about that unknown that really draws me in. I really love that story, and those stories are that I think we talked about last week too. Is the horror stories that draw us in, and the unseen. I'm not drawn into the gore so much, and the shock factor of gross unseen, that something's there. I love that. I love it, and I have a love-hate relationship with all the haunt, like going to that Carriage Village or walking around in a cemetery at night. It's there's the rational side of me that says it's a cemetery. It's the same at night as it is during the day, but I get this little chill. And so to answer that question about seeing a ghost, the closest I've come is my brother, my buddy, another Scott, and I were out in the cemetery that's across the street from my house. And it was cold. It was November, early December. And we had, this was pre-smartphone. We had a digital camera. and we'd take a picture and it had a flash. Well, we wanted the flash because otherwise it didn't see anything. We realized we could see our breath on the whoever was holding it, you could see your breath. So we'd count down 3, 2, 1. We all hold our breath and we'd close our eyes because it would ruin our night vision. We'd take that picture, and we got one picture, and I wish I had it. And it doesn't match anything else. It's not a cloud of breath. It's not those motes of light that you get from the dust or whatever. It was this kind of round shaped outline that you don't have to use much imagination. It looks like a face, and it has all these wispy lines coming out of it. And it's so crazy. And the next one didn't have it, and the one before it didn't have it. So it's just a really cool picture. I don't know what's going on in it. And it could be just you can explain it away as digital photography or whatever, that something weird caught the light just right and it reflected off a headstone. But I've not had any real instances of anything supernatural. And like Dan, I think what Brent was saying as well, there's something there. I believe there's something else, but ghosts, demons, I don't know where people are and between here and the afterlife. I don't know.
And what you were saying, Scott, about just the unknown, I think H.P. Lovecraft, when he's at like the top of his game, does that really well. Like just the whole idea of like fighting something that you don't have a chance against, and it's just there and it's overwhelming and oppressive, and just you're just trying to hold on to your sanity and not like lose your mind because of what you're up against. Like he's really hit and miss. I think like some of his stuff is like really, really not that good. But when he's at the top of his game, I really enjoy his sort of otherworldly supernatural horror, just because it's just normal people against stuff that's just way out of their league.
I'm reading Lovecraft right now. You're right. He's good.
Yeah.
When he's good.
Yeah. When he's not so good, but yeah, when he's at the top of his game, he's really, really good. I don't know. He was like a racist, and I was listening to NPR or something, and they were talking about Lovecraft and that whole aspect of him. And like when you kind of read the work now about like all these like otherworldly things, but you kind of like put like his like kind of perspective of like what he's afraid of, and like the xenophobia and everything, and just like what those things represent in those stories is kind of interesting. And I kind of want to go back and read them now, knowing everything I know about like personally.
I can't remember his name, but there's a gentleman. He runs something like the H.P. Lovecraft Preservation Society, something like that. But he is an immigrant, and he actually, he is all for preserving Lovecraft's work as they were in its entirety right now, and talks about why that is important to understand the sort of terrible mindsets of the day and what they can teach us through horror.
Interesting.
Yeah. Also, I guess I'll jump in here. Also, I love anything slightly supernatural. One of my favorite franchises is Warhammer 40,000, which is well known for space demons and wizards doing weird psychic stuff. And I think that's what I like. Bloodline is it as the kind of that grim, dark abstraction of horror subjects. As far as seeing of Ghost, I don't think I have, but did have my most eerie experience not too long ago, driving down through California. I popped off I-5, went down Route 66, and it's somewhere near the border of Oregon and California, about like 2 at night. And we're passing through a town that was a couple miles long. And we passed through residential blocks, the business section, everything like that. And it makes sense for everything to be closed at this point. What was weird was even passing through residential, in the entire like mileage of the town, we saw 2 cars, then nothing else, and then it was just another 5 miles of cornfields. Wow. And it's just that feeling of like, oh, there might be something out there. I don't like this at all.
Nice.
Yep. And Dan, you mentioned Bigfoot and all that too. The cryptids and all that. That's another thing that gets me. I love that stuff. I was stationed in Alaska for 3 years, and we lived on a boat. We took our boat off into the Panhandle. Ketchikan is in Southeast Alaska. It's all these cool inlets and forests. It's amazing. If you ever get to go. We took our boat off down an inlet to this cove, and we moored the boat, and we took the dinghy inshore as my wife and the 3 kids. And there's a forest ranger cabin that they maintain for the ranger service, but also people can rent them. And you go, and they've got firewood and a stove and bunks in there, and it's cool. When you think about the scope of where you are, if you were to Google Map and zoom out, it's just there's nobody around you. And so we had a fiberglass dinghy, and the tides go way up, 15, 18 feet changes out there. So we dragged the dinghy way up on the shore, well above the high water mark. And we had 2 wooden oars, in the oar locks that we rowed like so, and we put them in. They were left locked and had the paddle ends in the boat. Spent the day, spent the night. Next morning, I came out to the boat, the dinghy, and one of the oars was gone. And I walked around, and we have a dog, but she wouldn't have picked up the oar and trotted away with it. I walked all the way around it. There's someone would have had to pick it up and carry it away. And that, of course, the storyteller mindset, the active imagination. I'm like, who's lurking in the woods watching me right now?
I'm at a cabin in the woods. What could go wrong?
right. So yeah. So I have this. All these things are going through my mind of, okay, well, I've got to paddle out to my boat now, the big boat, and leave my family, or do I take the family and leave them? Is that all those thoughts of I'm going to see them with whoever's out there with them, or back on shore. There's going to be the crackle of the radio. Scott, you got to come back. So it's just so weird. So I'm telling the story later on in Ketchikan, and somebody tells me, you got to tell this guy. He's a Sasquatch nut, loves it. And I told him he's Squatch, definitely. They love stealing that stuff. They love axe handles. They love it. Yep, he's probably out there knocking it on a tree right now. So they also their mythology, they have a Kushtaka, and they're otter people, and they're shape changers. They will be otters, and they will be an anthropomorphic otter, or they'll be a human. And their thing is they will, if you're out in the water, they'll call to you. They will have the appearance and likeness and sound of a past loved one. And if you accept their call, they'll pull you in, and then you become one of them. So maybe the Kushtaka stole my oar. And those things aren't cheap. They're like $90. So I was upset. So that's my cryptid story.
I wonder if they steal them and then resell them like this.
I should have checked eBay. Slightly used oar from some hapless idiot in the wilderness of Ketchikan. But I love those stories of the whole thing, the unknown, something lurking, either hairy flesh or ethereal. That I think that makes for a great story. Makes for a great, because you're always wondering.
Yeah.
But when it breaks the rules, and when it just becomes dumb, that ruins it. When it makes zero sense, or when the supernatural, and they explain it all away with supernatural stuff. It's just magic. It's the Force. It can do it. I don't like that. And guilty pleasure is those ghost hunter shows and the monster hunters. They're so dumb. The shows are so dumb, and nothing ever happens. I'm always drawn in. Why? I'm the one saying these are stupid.
The worst of those is that the mountain monsters, the one where it's like the the four like super hillbilly old guys with the big beards going out with the guns, and that one is like completely over. They like kind of stopped, I think, even trying to pretend that show was real about. It's because every episode they like almost catch a Sasquatch, or they do, or they're getting rocks thrown at them. Like they have them in a cage. It's remarkable. Like every episode, they pretty much have evidence that Sasquatch exists, but somehow it's not made it to the mainstream yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the world isn't ready for it yet.
They're squat.
It's an entertaining show though, but it's just I watch it with my son, and it's like we both understand that it's a complete work of fiction.
Right.
It's fun.
What's the beast down the Florida's got the Florida's gonna come. What's that?
That the skunk ape?
Skunk ape.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
How is it? You guys know more about that than I do, and I live here. Huh.
When I
There's a lot of Sasquatch ships.
When I was in Florida, we were worried about the meth gators. Just the fact that there'd be news reports of gators that find packets of meth, eat it, and just walk around town.
Oh.
No. We're mostly just worried about tourists because they can't drive. I mean, that's the urban legend that we really have to watch out for. So.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're lost too. They don't know. In Ketchikan, cruise ships would come in, and you'd have. It was like Ketchikan was like a model city, like we were a living museum, because people just wander out in the streets with their cameras, and they'd take pictures of the totem poles and the landscape with zero regard for cars, buses, duck boats. It's just a living city. Let's just take pictures of the locals in their garb, their Alaskan garb.
They go up to random people and say, "You're so believable."
Wow. Are you real? Is this wax?
You can barely see the animatronic.
Yeah, I would love to. I don't know. I have a mixed feeling of actually encountering something supernatural. Part of me, wants that to happen, and then part of me knows that I'll probably wet myself and pass out.
Yeah, it's 50-50 on whether or not I'll crap myself or if I'll try to fight it and die immediately.
Wait, you're talking about like a malevolent supernatural being, right? What if it's like one of the gremlins or something like that?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. And another instance in the cemetery across the street is a friend of mine knew we were over there, and he snuck over and he got the jump on us. And he came running up behind me, and I've learned my reaction is to throw punches in reckless, just no regard for what I'm punching. But I turned so fast and I slipped. So I was just throwing punches at his crotch. And he was laughing so hard and kind of doubled over to not fall over me because he ran up behind me and he was laughing. I didn't land any punches, but because he protected himself. But yeah, he got me good. I mean, I let out a yelp and I swung around and just and
I didn't know you slipped. I thought your instinct was always just to randomly punch at the groin repeatedly.
Yeah.
But the head is that's
It's the first thing. It's the first thing they teach in every self-defense class. Go for the weak spot.
Go for the.
Or if you're just mad at people, the cashier doesn't give you the right amount of change. Punch the groin. Yeah.
right to the groin. So then the supernatural side that goes into like in the science fiction world too. I know it's a bit of a stretch to overlap those, but I feel like it's just the supernatural side is another aliens and otherworldly beings as well. And so whereas the magical creatures and so forth might fit in the fantasy world, the science fiction world is the world of aliens. And I guess if unsolved mysteries can overlap Sasquatch with UFOs. What about UFO stories? Thoughts on those? Love them, hate them?
I'm a fan. It's actually you gave me an interesting thought there. Thinking about the eeriness and kind of the unknown horror style things. I think a really perfect intersection of that is sort of Gibson style cyberpunk. And of course, I have my Shadowrun poster here, which has fantasy elements as well. But the idea of like the ghost of the machine, what if a computer gained sentience and was this unknown actor, and if like in Neuromancer, spoilers, possessed or haunted people. So I think that's one of my favorite styles of modes of storytelling is the cyberpunk mystery.
I remember reading Neuromancer. Oh, I don't know. It's been a while ago, but I remember the one thing that stood out as being kind of funny to me, and like definitely a product of its time, was that like they were really impressed when somebody had like some sort of memory stick that could hold. I think it was like 8 megabytes or something, and I was like, "Oh, that's funny."
Yes,
you tell when it was written because it was just like, they were all like blown away that he had like something that had 8 megabits on it or something.
My favorite thing.
I liked it.
Yeah, my favorite thing is the annotated edition where he wrote a note on the opening line, which is the sky above the bay was the color of a television set to a dead channel. And Gibson knew, he's like, this line is going to fade out in like 50 years, and it was bad 10 years ago. Like, this has a very limited use. I'm aware.
That's funny. Great line, though.
Yeah.
Where can you find that, by the way? Is it online anywhere? Or?
I got the annotated actually through an audiobook, but yeah, you should be able to purchase it just about anywhere.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, I've never heard of it. Cool.
Yeah, I like that same thing that with that cyber, either some sort of AI or something like that, where it's ever present and you can't get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's frightening. It's scary. It's almost like that's what made like a Negan scary in the Walking Dead. Like you anything you do, like he's got his eyes on you. He's going to find out. So, and you're going to get punished. So those sorts of villains, that's sort of a villain or the world, like Minority Report too.
Yeah.
You're stuck. You're being watched. You have to outsmart it some way, and any little slip up can throw everything off, and it's ruined. And that makes for a great, for me. I love those stories of everything against the hero or the group of heroes. But I think that's a fantastic story, or element or a world.
But then that begs the question: is that sci-fi as opposed to supernatural?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't. What's the line? If there's if it's mechanical, I don't know. If it's technology, it's clearly
supernatural, like what's beyond science, and like science fiction is just science taken to a higher level, and like supernatural can't be explained by science per se.
Yeah.
Is that the
Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
I mean, if you like, one of my favorite villains in a movie is the Terminator, who is so unstoppable. He might as well be supernatural.
Right.
Yeah.
And he looks all sciencey, especially when his skin's off and everything.
Yeah.
And yet, I'm thinking, Dracula is kind of the same way, isn't he? And any other supernatural villain that's relentless. So if it's, I don't know. At that point, it almost feels a little like splitting hairs to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what do you do with a character like Morpheus, who wasn't a vampire, but because of science, he ends up turning himself into one, and he still kind of exists in that same world like Blade does, and there's other vampires, Deacon Frost, and all that nature. So it kind of blurs it, but it runs together in the same kind of vein.
Yeah.
So it can work together. It just has to be done well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Again with the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. establish your world, your rules, and stay within them.
Yes.
Add an expletive to the end of that.
Yes. And don't write it off as metachlorians.
Oh, God.
Oh boy.
And another thing.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to start watching the prequels now too. I don't mind doing that.
Don't get them started. Don't. Yeah, and in I'm veering off a little, but the CBS Star Trek world that's being built, I'm loving. I hope they please do it right. Please do it right. But the whole Spock's got another sibling, and this it wasn't there. Why didn't they?
Right.
Why did they never mentioned it before, but suddenly it's there.
I guess also kind of talking, going from Star Trek, and also what Brent kind of mentioned earlier when I said that I would immediately fight a supernatural being that I saw. He said, what if it wasn't benevolent? So what do you think about either benevolent or ambivalent supernatural beings like Q, which is just kind of there because it suits his fancy?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I tend to be a little turned off by. I was never a huge fan of Q in Star Trek, and honestly, I think I needed to go back and watch a lot of Next Generation because a lot of the early seasons they were on TV, and I was younger, and I just kind of watched them because it was a sci-fi show. I didn't put a lot of thought into them, and I haven't gone back to the early season. Or I say early, but I think there's more Q in the early.
Yeah.
He was in the first episode, actually.
Yeah.
He showed up right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and of all the pilot episodes, that's slow.
I tend to skip over the first season of TNG whenever you watch it.
Yeah.
That was Roddenberry. That was Roddenberry who wrote that.
Nice.
So.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
When
That's
Riker gets
like
his beard,
Lucas
it's
in
okay to
Star
start
Wars.
watching, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
Now, what they say? When Riker gets his beard, that's when it's okay to start watching.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Good to know. And also when they start wearing uniforms instead of tights.
Right, and when Picard can do the Picard maneuver.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Has everyone seen the Rikering video too?
Right.
That one's great.
Yeah,
Like
look
how
up
Riker
Rikering.
sits in a chair. I never know until someone compiled that. He brings his leg over the back of the chair to sit down in it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's fascinating because I noticed it when I years watching Star Trek Next Generation, and now I can't unsee it.
I do that before walking to every meeting, just a power move.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm Will Riker. Yeah.
I can sit over chairs.
So what's funny because the pilot of the Cage, right, was the original series intended pilot episode, but it didn't air, and then they spliced it up for the Pike flashback with those mind guys, right? Because CBS said it was too cerebral. It wasn't sci-fi enough, and it was too brainy. And then Next Generation did the same thing with their first episode with Q and that tribunal and humanity on trial. And I mean, I'm sure it's great. It's a great thing to think about, but I feel like it was too much out of the gate, and with that supernatural being. So what I was saying is, I tend to be if there's an all powerful being that can that there's nothing you can do about him or her or it. It's really tough to do that character well without. Because what's to worry about for him, or what can the characters you're supposed to have empathy for, they can't do anything about it either. So it's kind of like, take it, leave it. That's my feeling. Unless that supernatural godlike being has some sort of limitation.
Right. Or you kind of have to give him the Superman effect, where you give him something else that he cares about that can be heard.
Yes.
And kind of bouncing off what you were saying there, Scott. Brandon Sanderson, I believe, has the rule that this is more for pros, but you can use this for any medium. That you're allowed one buy-in per page. That per page you can get the reader or the audience to buy one fact of your world. And so if you're dealing with Space God, there you got to do a lot of exposition. The audience has to buy a lot. So if you just do like what they did with Q later on and some other dudes, where they just kind of like popped in like once, like, okay, here's this guy and here's one thing about him. Here's drama on the ship. Here's this guy. Here's one thing about him. Here's drama on the ship. When they deal with Q being ousted, and when he gets kicked out of the collective, the continuum. Yeah, the Q continuum. When he gets kicked out of the continuum, that's when I started to kind of care about him, because there was something else he cared about, which is his rank. And he didn't just pop in the door, be like, I'm out of the continuum. Here's how he fixed this. He just kind of came in. He's like, I'm out. I'm getting drunk. And it's just these human moments. And then he got back to something with the continuum in more sad Q.
Right.
And that's probably a good note for any element. If it resonates on a human level, then it's probably okay to use. And if it doesn't, then why bother?
Right.
Which is why supernatural, that unknown, everybody has a fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, some people it doesn't speak to. They want flesh and blood as an enemy or a villain.
Right.
That supernatural, it's an unknown, and it's a mystery. So the mystery and the frightening element, it draws us all in.
It's always fun when the heroes can't just outright beat the villain. Like they're not more powerful than the villain. They have to be clever, figure out something, figure out a way that they're going to attain victory. They don't just overpower. Like Voltron. Right. It was like the same thing when I was watching Voltron as a kid. I don't know what the new one's like. I haven't watched it. But it was the same. They'd fight, they'd get beat up as lions, and they'd form Voltron, then they'd start to get beat up. Then they'd make the sword and they'd cut the bad guy in half. And it was the same thing every week. And it's like they just overpower it. That there's no drama to just overpowering your opponent. And when you can do it at any time, just make Voltron, make the sword, and cut it in half in the first 30 seconds of the fight, and you're done. Like, why do you do the same thing every week? But it's it was probably made for younger kids, and I was watching it when I was older. But I like when you have to think your way around how to defeat something instead of just outright beating it, or you get lucky and win sometimes too. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
more so than just pummeling it into the ground.
Yeah, pummeling has its place, but like I can name so many movies where the hero gets thrown a lot of sub-level bad guys all at once, so he or she can basically clean house, and that shows the audience, okay, they're worthy to level up, and then they fight the big guy. So without the sub-level bad guys, you're not sure if your hero's really able to take on the big bad, so they've got their place. But if Blade 2 always comes to mind, because they've got Wesley Snipes fighting all the security guys. Like the vampires have security guys. That ought to tell you that someone probably didn't think to do that well, but it's a great scene. But you need it so that you know that Blade is back on the case and he's ready. But if that had been all there was, we would have been bored.
Yeah.
It would have been like, what's he do now? I mean, get yogurt? Wouldn't have made any sense. But if he'd gone straight to the bad guy, you would have been like, all he's going to do is just get his butt handed to him left and right, and then he'll get lucky and kill the guy that way. And sometimes that works in movies. But it's good to have the level up aspect.
Yeah.
And actually, on that note, I have to go.
Oh,
sorry, guys.
It's about that time.
I should have reiterated that at the beginning.
Shameless plug. Where do we find you and your work?
I am on Instagram on Brent.Vector is my handle, and I'm on Facebook. And soon I'll have my website up and running, and I believe I said that a couple months ago. So soon is a relative trait, much like the sci-fi universe that we were just discussing.
So for all of our adoring fans, go follow Brent. Thanks, Brent.
Yes. All right,
Good night.
guys. Good night.
All right.
Before I switch gears, any last thoughts on supernatural elements in stories from our remaining men?
What about how does everybody feel like, say, Thor 2, when they kind of had like that superhero world and you introduced like the dark elves? I honestly couldn't get through that movie. So, but how does that mesh for everyone? It just didn't feel coherent to me, I guess.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I get the Dark Elves from Norse mythos. They have their place, and using the redstone and kind of tying that into blood magic was also kind of appropriate. But the way it was done, there was some verisimilitude that was broken. There are some other elements of story that just kind of got glossed over or rushed through, and is at the point where you get to the end and you don't remember the first act of the movie because things happen, but not really in a way that would stick with you. There wasn't any points made.
I didn't feel like I just didn't feel like they were developed enough. Like I didn't care about them or why they were doing what they were doing. They just didn't seem. My issue with the Dark Elves was just that they weren't fully realized. You know, they were just there. They were there to be fought, and that was kind of the only. For me, that just didn't seem like it was enough to latch onto. Whereas, like when Simonson was doing it in the Thor comics, where they kind of drew it from, I thought it was great. I loved it in the comics, but on the big screen, I don't think it translated quite as well.
See, for me, I never considered Thor a superhero. You know, he was a Norse god, and him and Wonder Woman, they never came across to me as being superheroes. If you're a god, I don't think you're a superhero. You're a god. So that I was never a Thor fan because of that. I just think of him as a superhero. And I know they kind of did the whole magic side thing, and the me old hat. It doesn't fit well for me either. But
sure,
I guess I'm negative. But it's and sometimes those things can work, but I don't know, for some reason having a god and superhero is kind of like having Q in Star Trek in a way. So
you don't worry about him.
Right.
He's almost unstoppable. I see what you're saying. I enjoyed the Thor movies, and I'll show my comic book ignorance is I don't know how closely the movies followed the comics canon. And when I say that, I know we are dealing with decades of storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I think they take hints, you know, they take cues from the comics, but there's never, I don't think, ever a direct translation from the page to the screen with the Marvel stuff. I think they just kind of draw inspiration from what's there.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do it better than others. Most of the time, I think they're pretty on the nail. I didn't like the second Thor that much, or the second or third Iron Man, but besides that, I'm pretty down with just about all the Marvel movies, really.
Yeah.
But he was a god in the comic book, though, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was clever, though, how the movie did that. They gave it, like, from the earthly perspective, we thought he was a god.
Yeah.
He's almost like, you know, Superman on another planet. He's kind of normal-ish.
Yeah.
But when he comes here,
was that Arthur C. Clarke that said, is he the one? Any science that's significantly advanced would look like magic to, you know, the people that aren't that advanced. That's a bad paraphrase, but I think he said something along those lines.
Yep.
And that's what they kind of did in the Thor ones, was that their science was so advanced that it seemed like magic, but it was just really super science, I guess.
Yeah.
But then still magic, right? Because the hammer and
yes. You called it magic because you didn't understand the science. That's the.
Did someone write code into Mjolnir to know who's worthy to judge?
That's what the Norse symbols were. They were actually codes. So.
Yeah.
It's programmed. Okay.
It's early 101101. So.
what were those aliens on Next Generation that talked the binarians, right?
Yeah.
So that's a tangent. Has anyone seen? I'm sorry, another tangent. Star Trek tangent. Has anyone seen the Star Trek intakes?
Oh, those are good.
Where they take the blooper reel. Somebody did it. It's magic, and they splice it in perfectly, like it's part of the show instead of the what made it to.
No.
They take the blooper and they put it into the real scene, and they're like 2-minute clips.
Gold.
But it's hilarious. They're great.
no,
Some
gold.
of them are like super awesome. And
Or the or when they're when they're doing the shots when they got the camera on one person and then the other guy just says his line. I don't know what they call that, but they got one where Jonathan Frakes is they're showing him on the other side of the camera just being an idiot. And no, Star Trek intakes gold. So that ties in because Q is supernatural. There we go.
There you go.
Rikering and Star Trek intakes.
Rikering.
Check those out.
So for the last little bit of our show here, because we do have a Kickstarter campaign going on, and I keep saying Kickstarter, I will probably use that interchangeably with crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a wonderful thing, I think, in the world of independent publishing and independent artists, with the transition from the gatekeepers of publishing, the big book guys and the comic book guys, to now the independent world having so many outlets. I think it's an amazing thing, and many of us have been involved with Kickstarter campaigns and crowdfunding campaigns and self-publishing. But while it is amazing and the opportunity is there, it is at the same time equally, I think, frustrating. And you just like the sea of podcasts, the sea of YouTube videos, we can get lost. And so we can talk. It doesn't have to be a linear conversation like so many of our conversations. We can jump around, talk about the merits of crowdfunding, the merits of independent publishing, and throwing off the shackles of the big guys. We can talk about the merits of the big guys too. Of course, there's something good there. That would any of us pass up an opportunity? I don't know, but there is something very special about the small independent presses like Silverline. So who has, other than right now and maybe our previous campaigns and what Silverline's done, who has been involved with other self-publishing or crowdfunding projects?
I did about 4 or 5 years, and it really is. There's never been a time like this to be a self-publisher, a small press publisher, an independent publisher, because of all the outlets and all the different ways you can get your product in front of the people, whether it's producing a weekly webcomic or just producing something digitally, Kablam. There's so many like on-demand small digital printers, and just so many ways you can just put it out on the web. And then there's so many ways you can crowdfund. But like you were just saying, then it's also, how do you stand up above the white noise, even at conventions? Because now there's if you wanted to, you could find a convention to go to probably every week easily. Now, well, not now because of everything with the COVID-19, but before that, there was conventions every week that you could go to. Even the town I live in, which is small between Rochester and Buffalo, for a couple of years had its own comic convention. They're just everywhere. But then even there, it's like, how do you stand up above everyone that's selling everything around you? You know, everyone's selling something. And I found that trying to sell a comic was a lot harder than a lot of the people around me in Artist Alley that were selling prints of Spider-Man or Superman, or, not that I have no problem with that, but it was just, they're selling a property that's known, and I'm trying to sell people something that they've never seen before. And I think that's the harder sell to do. But to speak specifically of my experience, it was a good experience. I had a lot of generous friends and family that helped make my Kickstarter successful, and I mean, I was kind of wide-eyed and like expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, but it actually got enough funds from the first Kickstarter to fund doing several issues, which was nice because I thought my first print run was going to be much higher than it was. But then speaking of gatekeepers, there was Diamond that you had to get through at that time to try and get into comic shops. And if they said no, there was no other route to go through. And that could be a whole different podcast about distribution models and how having one point of failure isn't necessarily the best model to have, which I think kind of showed its face during this whole thing that just happened with COVID and Diamond kind of stopping, and then DC kind of making their own 2 distribution networks. So, but I don't know. It's I think it's a great time to do it, and it's also a challenging time because there's a lot of people doing it now. Sorry, I talked a long time.
No. And Dan's. I'm going to plug it for him. Dan's project in his comic book is called File 13, and it's a great superhero.
Website is down for now, but I hopefully I'll have it up in the next week or so again. So
Okay.
But yeah, File 13 was fun, and it was based on a comic I did when I was 12 years old, actually, and then me and my friend kind of brought it back to life and tried to do something with it. And it was fun. I definitely would do it again if I could, but it's just I learned a lot, and I would do a lot of things differently than I did the first time out. I love the new model of just kind of using the crowdfunding platform as your distribution model. Like that's where your audience is, and so you're creating for that audience. You're not trying to get into comic shops per se, which is it's tough. If there was more distribution like there was in the 80s when there was, I don't know what, there was 5-6 distributors that were, selling to the different comic shops. It was cool because it's, if one person didn't distribute somebody, they could try another avenue. But I think the model now to use this platform, the crowdfunding platforms as your distribution, is probably the best way to go for the time being.
Yeah, and I can talk on that. I self-published prose before, which ended up helped me get traditionally published because it's work under your name. And then I've also worked with before Silverline. I worked with an indie press at a booth at Rose City Comic Con, and know the struggles of trying to get heard over the booth with cosplayers next door, which is impossible. But the key really to everything now in indie land for prose, film, and comics right now with the internet, everything got democratized. So anyone can make anything and put it out, but you have to be loud and you have to find some way to garner a cult of personality. Otherwise, you're going to get washed away. It doesn't have to be, the super A-type charismatic stereotype, but just have some sort of unique selling point about yourself that makes people want to follow you on Twitter, right, which will lead them to your website. And that's another thing, is that it made social media so much more important for any sort of creator, even though creators probably have some of the most crippling social anxiety and imposter syndrome and unwillingness to market themselves that I've seen in people, including myself.
Yep. You just want to write the book, you want to put it in an envelope, send it off to somebody, get the book out there, and not market yourself. You're right, because you got to be a character. You got to be your own personality. You've got to be consistent about, and that, you think, oh, I can do this. I can do a post a day on all the socials. It's tough to make something new every single day.
Job.
Yeah, and to make it relevant, and you never. I know it's all the algorithms and all that sort of stuff, but sometimes you think, oh, this post, I'm going to kill it with this post. This is going to be amazing. This is going to go viral. Everyone's going to love it. It flops,
right?
And then your dumb share of something else, the one you phone in. Oh, I'm going to share this. That now I can go to work, and that's the one that gets people's attention, and it's frustrating. I haven't been in the world long enough. So Steam Patriots originally was going to be a series of novellas, and I had a publisher, and he started a Kickstarter campaign, and he wanted way more. His previous project was a bit of a hit. He did Steampunk Holmes, and they retold a Sherlock Holmes story in a steampunk vein. It was really cool, and they did an audio book, and it was an interactive app for a tablet, and it was pretty cool. So he's coming off of that, and he wanted to do Steam Patriots, and I don't know what happened on his side, but that my experience was it was a total dud. So that's how it morphed into a comic book, which I'm enjoying so much more now. But to get above the noise, and Dan, you had mentioned at the same time your campaign was going on, some guy was making potato salad or something like that.
Potato salad, yep. $80,000 to make potato salad. It was like one of the things was he would mail you a spoonful of his potato salad, and I was like, that's when I just wanted to like throw in the towel when I'm like hustling, trying every day to like make something and like get people to back it, and he's got $80,000 for making potato salad. I was a bit of a hater for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not proud of that, but I was very, very angry.
And if we're not, I'm complaining a little more, but if you're not a attractive person, that's what I don't get. If you're just like a really good looking person on Instagram, you got 80,000 followers for just posting pictures of yourself, and so I don't know why I don't have more followers with this going.
I'd say lumbersexuals are in right now, so we just need to really market our beards in flannel and.
More flannel, more. Oh my gosh, what are you suspenders? Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, we're not beholden to a acquisitions editor.
Yeah.
Nope. I don't like your story or whatever. Your title didn't grab me, and that it ends up in a trash can.
And we don't have the problems like the Bat Family just had, where they had kind of a collapse during the year because a bunch of the writers on all the ancillary Bat titles found out that like 3 people had a conference start of the year, said this is going to be the entire Bat Family story for the next run, scrapped everyone else's story. So every writer, every artist that was working on like Batwoman, Batgirl, like, hey, here's your new work, scrap everything you wrote like the last 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. So
having worked in publishing, I mean, if you send something in unsolicited, the chance of an editor even seeing it is slim. I mean, most of the times that stuff was seen by interns, not even editorial assistants or something. If it's like unsolicited, you're just sending a manuscript in to see if it gets, that's like the chances are very small that it's going to be looked at by someone who can actually make that decision.
The dreaded slush pile.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then waiting 4, 5, 6 months to hear
or never hear.
Oh yeah, never.
That's the other thing. Is like, if you're not being considered, they generally just tell you like, don't expect to hear anything.
Right.
And I had that problem with Image when I sent something to them. I was like, I just didn't even know if my thing got through, and I would send an email just saying like, just making sure you got it, and they wouldn't even respond to say like, yes, we got it. But
great.
I understand they probably get like 1 billion submissions a week, but
yeah,
just have some sort of auto form saying we received your submission.
Yes.
This way I know you got it. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough to not sound like a annoying, pushy person, but you just legitimately want to know. So the world's our oyster in the independent world. It's just getting in front of people to be noticed, and a lot of times there's an element of luck or who you know, or who who knows somebody,
mm-hmm.
and just get that person to say just once, say something.
Yeah,
and it's very important.
I've never done any like really big shows like the New York Comic Con or the Baltimore one. I did a bunch of smaller ones, and I found like some of the ones I did best at, like trying to sell my book, were like the free library Comic Cons that are really small, but people are getting in for free. your table's free, so you're not worried about trying to cover table costs. And people haven't really spent money to get in the door or spend $200 to get William Shatner's autograph or something. So they have money to spend, so they're looking to spend money. And I've done pretty well at them. And I also find that when I have my computer monitor set up, if I have access to electricity and I can have like a screen showing the comic, like anything that makes you different from everyone else that's around you.
Yeah.
I find, if anyone's listening that's getting into indie publishing, it's like anything you can do that makes your area look different than everyone else's is probably going to get people to come over and at least look, and then you can start a conversation with them.
Yeah. Something that feels kind of true. Also in comics is something now. Some advice I was given when I got first started writing prose was, when you first start out, you're going to be writing for other writers and critics. Then don't expect anyone else to pick up your stuff. And those smaller cons where you're going to be selling a lot of your product earlier on, it's people there are either collectors, writers, artists, or critics. Because that's how they know it exists, and so they're looking for the other indie comics that either that they can network with because everything is just a giant handshake fist fight, or everyone's just trying to support the lower level guys that they're into because a rising tide raises all ships. So the more you can ingrain yourself with that sort of everyone rising up at the same time, the you're going to create your own clique that elevates each other.
Yeah, that's.
100%. I was reading an article today of the guy who did, it was an independent comic for Image called Skull Kickers, and he said the amount of money that they actually, after everything's off, Image, publishers, distribution, everything, he said you got maybe $31 a page. So your question is, you're killing yourself to try to get out there and be part of this mainstream, to have your own stuff out there under that big eye. And it's like, but can I even make a living that by the time it's over with? But when you got guys put out stuff, there's that Cyberfrog guy. He just raked in $1 million on his Indiegogo, and you kind of go, wait a minute here. I don't know.
Hold on.
You want to get 40% of proceeds to one place, you only get, a very small percentage back. Do I really want to do that?
I mean, that's the cult of personality you were talking about. He has like a rabid fan base because of his personality, and people gravitate to him and what he says and his personality. It's all based on,
which is insane.
Everything you do outside of comics now as an indie publisher has a huge effect on your sales and what you do, and like how you sell yourself, your social media presence. All that is so huge now. It's insane. There's a guy I met at a convention, and he was on the verge of selling like 2,000 copies of a comic he had self-published. I was like blown away by that. And but his artist had like 100,000 followers on Instagram or something. So like when you have someone that's tied to your project that has that sort of following, you're just getting in front of that many more eyes and getting that many more people interested in what you're doing. So, but I don't know. I wasn't looking when I hired an artist to do File 13. I wasn't looking at how many Instagram followers he had.
Right.
Maybe I should have been. I don't know. It's
and you probably couldn't afford them.
I don't know how he did, but it was pretty remarkable to when he was, unless he wasn't telling the truth about his number.
There you go.
I was pretty blown away. I was like, wow, that's a lot, because I have about that many. Well, not that many. Between my first 3 issues, I have about that many sitting in my basement.
So what do you guys look for when you're on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, those sorts of things? What do you look for when you're clicking around looking for, when you're feeling like you want to support somebody or you're shopping? Because I like to go there and look for something new. If I'm going to spend my money, I want to spend it with somebody who's busting their hump to make something.
I look for what's weird, and people who I generally want to support. There are some characters in indie comics that I don't necessarily throw cash at, but one of the ones that just recently, not too recently, but bigger profile ones that I backed was Maddie from Duncan Jones. He put together a book, and he did it the way we do it, where he finished the book first and made sure this is just to take care of everyone after the fact. It's a fair trade comic, as he calls it, and I think that's kind of great branding. But if you look at his entire career, it's just been all weird indie stuff. He's just been grinding by himself with like movies like Moon and now this, and that's someone who I generally enjoy, and I like his opinion on the arts, and so I want to support him as much as I can. And it's a weird story, so it's kind of middle my criteria.
You guys have thoughts?
Oh, I'm a fan of superhero comics generally. I mean, that's why I kind of look for something that has a feel of the comics from the 80s and early 90s that I grew up with, that I love, that everything's kind of self-contained, but you're still building a larger universe. And hopefully there's action, but hopefully there's like an underlying subplot that's more thought-provoking and leads you to more story further on down the line. I think that's why the Silverline stuff appeals to me, because it does have that kind of vibe to it. And that's just what I've, but that, I mean, by the same token, I think someone mentioned earlier on, maybe it was in our Facebook chat or something, about Sandman, and I love that too. So it's not necessarily just straight up superhero stuff, but I mean, anything that's good storytelling. But if I'm looking for, kicking around on Kickstarter or Indiegogo looking for something, it's probably going to be something that's more akin to the older style superhero stuff that I love. But I mean, some of the more modern stuff is pretty good still too, but kind of out of touch with most modern comics nowadays, like mainstream stuff, sadly. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, it's tough to quantify, and it's kind of a dumb answer. But it's got to be a good story. It's got to grab me at the beginning and be coherent. And especially if we're talking comic books and graphic novels, it has to be well done. If I get lost between the panels, or if I get lost in a page turn in a transition, I can't tolerate it. So I really, really want to support when somebody's doing it right, when they've done it, they've got a good story. And I love fantasy to sci-fi to zero supernatural, just a story. So if the story is well crafted, and I know it sounds like a simplistic answer, but I'm pretty picky about where I'm going to spend my money, and I want to support that and say, yeah, you've done it, good job. And I'm picky about art too. The images, I know to judge a book by its cover, but if we're talking again graphic novels, the art has to attract me. And there's certain styles that I like, and so I will be immediately drawn to that. And then a well-crafted, if we're talking crowdfunding, a well-crafted campaign that it's got. I'm not always into the rewards. I like to just support the book. I usually look for the support level that gets me the product. I don't always want the extras, mostly because I'm cheap as well. I think it's never in my budget to get all the extras, but I want the product. And then maybe if I can give a little extra to get the product, and then say, don't send me the extras. But when it's a well-crafted campaign, it spells out the story, who the people are. I really like to see that too, who the people are, who the creators are, because it's the whole point. It's the whole point of these independent creators, is where we are names with faces, and we're creating something, and that's that connection. That's what I love in the small indie world. We can be connected, and that person's not lost in the sea of a big of a behemoth of a publisher or studio or something like that.
And that's what's cool about going to conventions too, is when you're in the artist alley and that's one, you can actually, you don't want to have too long a conversation if there's a lot of people around a person's table, but if there's not, you can actually, talk for quite a bit of time, and you can as a creator, you can talk to people that are into your product for a while, or as a fan of somebody, you can go and talk to them and learn more about them and more about their product. And it's just, I don't know. It's I do like that. I mean, I wouldn't mind having so many people at my table that I couldn't talk to people, but that's generally not the case. So I enjoy the interaction and talking to people, and like, you know, not necessarily just selling them the product, but like having them read it and then having them come back later and say they read it and enjoyed it or something. It's always fun to like, meet people that are doing the same thing you're doing and people that appreciate the stuff that you're doing.
We have thoughts from our scribblers. Not putting you on the spot. You can say no. Take a hike, Scott.
Usually when I'm looking to, I guess, help someone kickstart a book, I usually kind of flip through their campaign and kind of read as like try to figure out what the book is and when the book's going to be out and how far they've already completed, like how much they've actually done. And because if it's a book where it's slated for like 2021, most likely I won't kickstart just because I don't want to have to be waiting a whole year to get something. And most likely they're going to have extras anyways, and I can just buy it through their website. And also something I look for, like Scott, you know, it's the art. I have to feel a connection to the art, and I have to like it. And hopefully they have enough, you know, I guess, images shown to kind of get me hooked. I'm not really, like, the story, obviously, I don't want to be spoiled, so I don't try to read that much of it. I just kind of skim through the art and try to make a judgment call there.
Yeah, talking about using social media, I'd actually read a couple of books trying to, you know, enhance my social media presence. And one of the things is you don't want to be on there. He constantly was saying you don't want to be on there like Twitter or Facebook or whatever, just plugging your stuff. Right. You want to have some kind of personal, say something personal. Like even go to I've tried this a couple of times, but I don't have any comments on stuff trending on Twitter. I try to go to see what's trending on Twitter and say something about that daily. And it's like, I have nothing to say about Kanye and Kim. I'm sorry.
Try to come up with something every day. Yeah, that's what I was saying. But I like Roland does that. A couple weeks ago, a month ago, he put a picture. He got a haircut. You know, that's content. That's outside. He's not saying buy my comic books. Yeah, I'm Roland. Right. We're connecting. He's connecting with the Silverline people, and people are saying it's something interesting. I mean, a haircut, but it's, hey, Roland did a thing, and he's connecting. You're right.
You want to put yourself out there because if people like you, they'll want to support what you're doing, right? Yeah. So hopefully you're a likable person, and you'll find people like-minded that are on the same page as you that want to see what you're creating and support what you're creating. So it's important to let people know you're working on something, but it's also important just to let them get a glimpse at who you are.
Yeah.
And what you're doing.
And a lot of it is also just having that genuine trying to be part of a community, not just trying to exist in your bubble. A lot of my morning is spent thinking of jokes for Twitter, and then I'll share one of those, and then I'll scroll through other writers or people in the same or similar spaces, and if they're talking about something that I feel like I can genuinely contribute to, I'll try to be part of that conversation. And that also garners me a bit of interaction, and I usually will pop away from some of those with a follow or two if it goes well. So I've when I first got into streaming years ago, following numbers was the goal, but kind of did some like deprogramming where it's always more about the connection rather than the numbers. And if you approach it with the sense of genuine connection, you get better numbers, oddly enough. And I think also that kind of goes to what Dan was saying, the having people come at your table and just talk to you. Storytelling was originally about community and that aspect of gathering around like a fire and talking with the tribe. And so when someone comes to your table and just talks to you about the story that you shared with them, I feel like that does a lot for you cathartically.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
I read somewhere, too. Someone says if you can get 1,000 loyal fans or loyal followers, that's exponentially better than just 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
You can get, and so every time you do a thing, every time you write a story, every time if you get those 1,000 people that are dedicated, 1,000 was the number they gave, and I don't know what number is right for anybody, but if you get that dedicated fan base, they're going to buy the thing. We want them to buy our story, we want them to buy our T-shirt or our hat, and promote what we're doing, and so we can earn a living doing what we love. And so you're right, make that connection, that relationship, and don't just, it's not constantly, hey, buy my thing, give me money. It's we can even get to know each other. You chit chat back and forth on social media. And that's another thing that resonates with me too. If I can't remember his name. He did a steampunk series. He's a voice actor. And he's legitimate. He's a voice actor, and he's got other roles. He's on the screen, and he emailed me back and forth via Kickstarter because I had a question about his project and a question about my project, which was happening at the same time, and that's cool. And so now I follow this guy and I watch what he does, and if he does another Kickstarter campaign, I'm going to follow it. So that speaks to me. So I try to replicate that.
Yeah.
It is generally a really cool community. I mean, I've met a lot of people at conventions that I'm still in contact with that I really like and I really like talking with. And, despite a lot of headbutting that seems to be going on in the comics community, I've never had anything except really positive experiences with people. And I find, like, in Artist Alley and everything, most of my communications with people has always been really positive, and the fan base has always been really positive. Again, I've been out of that whole psych circuit for a couple of years now, but when I was in it from 2015 to, 2017-ish or so, 2018, I loved it, and I loved doing the shows, and I liked meeting people that other artists that were creating, and I also loved talking to the people that were there to buy stuff. It's cool. It's a really cool community. I'm looking forward to getting back into it eventually if cons ever come back again, hopefully soon.
Yeah, because he was a nice guy. Matt Yang King, voice actor and actor. So, he didn't have to respond to my stupid questions. So that was good. So, well, it is well into the second hour. We can start wrapping up here, folks. We're going to let everybody know where they can find us, how they can support us. And I'll let everybody do that, and then I'll wrap up with a final Silverline Kickstarter plug, and then we'll say goodnight. So why don't we start at the other end? Mr. C. Michael Lanning, why don't you tell everybody, and the artists, tell us what you're working on too right now that we're looking at. I'm sorry, I haven't brought that up during the show. So why don't you tell us what you got going on right there?
I'm working on a mini-series project for Silverline called The Rejects. And right now I'm just on the basic stage of character design. So
cool. Does this guy have a name? Can you tell us?
It's The Rejects. I think it's okay to tell you. It's a project with our editor, Roland Mann.
Okay. And then this character you're drawing?
This is kind of this guy's name is Mr. Steve.
Okay.
Smarter than everybody else. So
okay, cool. Yeah, well, if we get in trouble, I'll take the blame.
Yeah.
This is that special insider content that our Silverline fans get to see. So and how do folks find you, and how do they follow you and support you and what you've got going on?
Well, since I've already sold out my Twitter, I'm not very good at that. You do a Facebook page. Look for the art of C. Michael Lanning, or even C. Michael Lanning. I'll take your friend request. I've got enough room right now.
All right.
So.
Dan, you're next on the lineup.
What is File 13 on Facebook and at What is File 13 on Twitter are the two things that you can find that on, and hopefully whatisfile13.com will be back up and running soon.
All right. Alex?
Yes, well, this is just a character sheet of one of the characters from Cat and Mouse, and she might be in some other titles up and coming. Knoich, that's the way Roland likes to pronounce it. And then earlier you saw the finish of page 19 of Cat and Mouse, issue 3. So.
Very nice.
And then as terms of well, I guess. Anyways, my social media is Alex Gallimore. Pretty much if you just look that up on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, you'll find me. I don't think there's another Alex Gallimore drawing comics, so it shouldn't be too difficult.
Thank you, sir. Tim?
I am on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at TimTKWriter. I'm on Liker at TimTK. I am on TikTok at Tim Doesn't TikTok. And I'm here on Twitch at AgroBacon, where I'll be streaming Destiny 2 later tonight.
Very nice. Very nice. And my name is Scott Wakefield, and my project, Steam Patriots, is at Steam Patriots on Facebook and Instagram, and where I'm very bad about posting. I will try to put more art up. As we mentioned, all the art's done, getting some colors there soon from Mr. Dan Hosick for Steam Patriots. Would love if you follow all of our folks here. Go on the silverline.com. On Facebook, follow us there. Follow us on Instagram, and elsewhere. All the socials, I believe. We're trying to cover all our bases. Like and share, of course. You know the drill for social media. And the big thing that we can't forget is we have 2 titles running right now as one campaign: Friar Rush and Bloodline on Kickstarter. The link is all over our socials and our website. Support the projects in whatever way you can. You'll get those comic books and extras at whatever level you support. They are finished projects, so when the campaign is finished, you will see them in your mailboxes very quickly. So that is it, unless I've forgotten anything. Did I forget anything, Tim, Dan?
Anything's good.
All right. Everyone, we appreciate your support. Thank you for watching, and support the independent comic books, and let's make mine Silverline. Have a great night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.